It is time for some more Norwegian news. I swear, I really should go fetch my big flag and hang that up in the background whenever I do this instead. Yes. Yeah, that works very well indeed. Okay, now that we've got the correct accoutrements, let's have a look at this interesting little article, which will translate to English. The FRP has been right. So FRP, the Progress Party, is our right-wing party. I know, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's how it is. The Progress Party in Norway is the right-wing party, and it has been banging on about immigration for 20 years, probably. It is one of those parties that saw the problem on the horizon long before it actually became apparent to the vast majority of us. And now, finally, more and more people are waking up and going, shit. Now what? The asylum system is dishonest, expensive, and help few of those who need it the most. The right to seek asylum anywhere in the world is outdated. Now, actually, you don't actually have the right to seek asylum anywhere in the world. You are supposed to seek asylum with the first nation you arrive at. That is supposed to be the deal. That, of course, didn't happen, and so we instituted more or less panic solutions by Germany, more often than not, and the EU to go, okay, some of the border countries are being overrun by opportunistic migrants who want to go to Europe because they figured it's easier to live here. We can't have Italy, Spain, Germany take all of this, and so we've decided to share the burden we've created. How very generous of you. In fact, there was a period, I shit ye not, where we had so few migrants that Norwegian NGOs went to Africa and actively sought out people to come here. They handed out brochures and everything on, this is how you seek asylum in Norway. And even then, nobody really wanted to come because, you know, minus 20 to 30 in the winter is not necessarily appealing to a sub-Saharan African. Thank you. Anyways, for decades, the Norwegian People's Party, that is not an accurate translation at all, I believe. Yeah, not at all. Has been provocative in its immigration policy. Much has been about their choice of words. Since Sylvi Listhaug became party leader, the harshest rhetoric has been toned down. By the way, that is a massive mistake. Sylvi Listhaug used to have some rather spicy things to say, but actually became the leader of the party. A lot of that disappeared, unfortunately. This is one of the leading problems, not just in Norway, but in every single political machinery across the world. We can see in England right now, for example, with Nigel Farage, who says all the right things until he's actually in a position to do the right things, and suddenly it's all consideration. Suddenly it's all, you know, we gotta be a bit careful here, we gotta sit quietly in the boat, we gotta compromise. No, that is not the solution we need. The harsh rhetoric has been toned down, and at the FRP National Convention this weekend, asylum policy is not amongst the biggest issues. Fixing YouTube and the internet in general, however, should be. There we go. Which again is just silly. The specific contention of asylum policy has always been met with head shaking and disgust. The proposal for asylum reception in Africa, for example, and the desire for a complete new asylum system where everyone's right to seek asylum in any country is eliminated. Let's see, is that correctly translated? Yes, it is, more or less. So, one of the leading things we've had in Norway for ages as well is to say that, okay, we could grant you asylum in Norway. We could do that, potentially, but why? Why would we want to do that? It's going to be expensive, it's going to be difficult, and we're going to have to travel you half the way across the globe and away from your native country. This obviously causes a tremendous deal of brain drain as well in these nations. Or what about, alternatively, we spend all of that money we would otherwise have spent on immigrants in Norway and send it to your country? Now, preferably at this point, I'm all for not spending a single red cent on anything outside of anybody's borders, honestly, but at the very least, if we do have to help, and I do see an absolute moral argument for helping, can we not help in the most effective way? Instead of bringing 100 people here, can we not help 1,000 people in place instead, so that we don't take the doctors and the engineers away from the nations we are supposed to be helping? But the Norwegian People Party has been right. For a couple of decades, the party has believed that the Refugee Convention is no longer appropriate. Once upon a time, it was an unacceptable opinion to have. That is no longer the case. Absolutely so as well. It has been, and not just in Norway, but in countries around the world, it was utter taboo to suggest that we don't accept refugees. It was crazy. It was inhumane. It was evil. Well, this week, former UDI, which is the Foreign Directory, Frode Forfang released the book Asylparadokset, Asylum Paradox. A few years ago, the message would have been explosive. He states what many of us seen for years, but struggle to fully understand. An unconditional right to seek asylum at any border is outdated. Unconditional right to seek asylum at all is outdated. FRP can welcome me after, so like, okay, welcome to having actually realized this, is Norwegian saying. The right to asylum is eroded and dysfunctional. The way the world has become, it does more harm than good. Always did. The other parties are not there yet. For example, the Conservative Party, which is Høyre, our right-wing party that isn't really right-wing, it's just the left-wing parties with a blue coat of paint, wants to return asylum seekers who have been to other safe countries before coming to Norway, if possible. The Labour Party says that the current asylum system is unfair, but does not say anything about what they will do about it. So, the problem there is, of course, that Høyre, our Conservative Party, quote-unquote, position is impossible. It doesn't happen. Okay, well, we got a migrant from Germany. We'll have to return him to Germany. Germany doesn't want him. Germany's not going to go like, oh, thank you, we were looking for him. No, if we try to return him to Germany or England or France or Russia, whatever we got him from, the officials there are going to go, nah, bruh, he's your problem now. We wash our hands, go away. There's no solution there. It is the only way is to basically expel them to the country of origin. That is the only thing that functions because nobody else will have them. Forfang describes a dishonest asylum system with endless negative consequences. The system does not protect those who need protection the most, it kills thousands every year because it facilitates deadly human trafficking. Also entirely correct. There are people earning millions, in essence, of the promise of bringing people to Europe, to bringing them across Italy. And hell, half of these are in boats practically designed to sink in the hope that an NGO will come along and pick them up. In other cases, they appear to actually have treaties with the NGOs, with NGO ships hovering just outside the nautical borders of the African country, waiting for boats to come to them, so that the people in the boat can then jump overboard and be in need and need to be rescued by the NGOs, who then bring them right back to Italy, of course. The biggest tragedy concerns unaccompanied minor asylum seekers, and here's the dilemma is greatest. Few in this group are in need of asylum, because they are children. They are still more likely to be granted residency in a European country. Therefore, it is often young boys who are sent to Europe to give their families a foothold there. Yes. These are adventurers more often than not. Military-age males who are young, strong, and capable of surviving the journey. And even then, a lot of them do die. And the moment they are in the country, family reunion is a right, after all. It's a thing that we've had in Norway for decades and decades, where if somebody gets here, they can go, oh, but my mother is in Iraq, I gotta go fetch her. And we agree, we even pay the trip. Oh, my grandfather's over there. Oh, my uncles, my cousins. You can bring practically your entire family to Norway and settle them there as well. This, obviously, is a system that sounds good in theory. Oh, of course we're going to help you bring your family. We love family values. But in reality, it means that people who live in countries that have gotten entirely used to working actively to exploit the system will go, oh, hey, so If I send my 5th son, who's never going to be able to inherit anything down here anyway, to Germany, we could all go to Germany? Wow, that sounds mighty generous of the German people. Yes, it does. This is a known issue, but it's not being stopped. And it's not being stopped because we don't have the moral argument to stop it. When somebody goes, oh, but I have to save my father, my mother, we can't go, no, fuck you, because that's not how we're built. That is not how our moral system works. Instead, we go, oh, of course. You want to bring some aunts and uncles as well? The paradox is that everyone recognizes the right to seek asylum, while at the same time, everyone does their best to undermine that same right. Well, not really. That is the thing. The paradox is not that everyone recognizes the right to seek asylum. Turkey doesn't recognize the right to seek asylum. Egypt doesn't recognize the right to seek asylum from Gaza, because everywhere the Palestinians has gone, they've tried to coup the local government. These countries aren't going like, oh yeah, no, totally, we're the first country you arrive in, we're gonna help you because we're friends and neighbors, right? No, they go, ugh, go to Europe, you filthy scum. We'll show you to the coastline. It is only us who recognize that, and it is also the invading hordes that understand that they can undermine that right as well. Politicians are caught between upholding the right to asylum and controlling their borders in an attempt to achieve both. European countries are doing everything they can to keep migrants out of the continent. At the same time, everyone who reaches the border has their asylum application processed through an expensive and time-consuming bureaucracy. Which is, of course, again, pointless. You can't prevent them from coming, unless you start literally sinking boats with battle cannons, and even that will only be a temporary solution until they find alternative routes. Unless the Mediterranean is literally patrolled non-stop by warships and combat aircraft, it ain't gonna stop. The winnings are simply too good. An entire life of abundance and luxury in a country that will give you everything you've ever desired and ask nothing of you in return. The money the bureaucracy cost could have been used to provide more refugees with better protections. Absolutely. All the measures to control the border weaken the right to asylum so much that in practice it is not a right. Many of those who need asylum do not reach it. Those who manage to raise enough money for cynical people smugglers and who are willing to take the great risk are the only ones who can reach it. They are not necessarily the ones who need the protection the most. By definition, they are not. Military-age men who flee a country who is being overrun by whatever they're fleeing from are not the ones that need the protection. They're the near ones who need to be turned around and going, no, fight for your country, you little shit. Whereas the women and children, the ones who are actually weak and actually need protection, or those who have actually suffered devastating defeat in war and are now the subject of various systems of exterminations, as we see in many African countries, for example, well, they now have to run the same gambit as the people who are simply coming to the West to get rich. It isn't fair for anyone. The right to asylum is also under increasing pressure because refugees and migrants can be used in hybrid warfare. Yes, Russia deliberately used migrants to destabilize the countries, its borders. That is why Finland has long since closed its border after the number of migrants from Russia increased sharply. Poland closed the border with Belarus last year because they believe the regime there is trying to destabilize Polish politics by sending migrants across the border. And this happened in Norway as well. We pissed off Russia, and so Russia put out ads everywhere saying, come to Norway, you'll be welcome. And they flooded across the borders, and very quickly, we changed our minds on our immigration policy. And what they don't say either here, which is amusing, is like, hybrid warfare to destabilize countries? Now, why would masses of immigrants destabilize nations? Who knows? It's one of those things that seemingly just happens out of nowhere. How strange. Everything also indicates that it was a deliberate act on part of the Russia that 5,000 asylum seekers crossed the border at Storskog in 2015. That is the incident I was referring to. The big problem with changing the right to asylum is that it is a lifeline for many who are truly in danger in their home countries, and the West simply cannot stop being the white savior. Refugees need just as much protection as before, but the current system does not ensure it. The good intention of asylum law have nevertheless resulted in a system that has too many wrong consequences. Therefore, it should be changed. Changing the asylum system, as the damn tab dies again. There we are. Changing the asylum system will not prevent opening the borders when needed. Giving Ukrainian refugees collective protection was absolutely right. And you know what? I largely do agree. And it's entirely possible even if the right to asylum is restricted. The change would be, of course, who gets asylum. All of the military-age males? Not so much. Norway and all countries in the world must take responsibility for people on the run. Do we? But the best thing is to ensure protection as close as possible, as we have done with Ukrainian refugees in recent years. The UN quota system is also well suited to relieving the countries that bear the greatest burden. Well, is it? Immigration may not be one of the big issues in this year's election campaign, but the time has come to give the Norwegian People's Party this particular victory. So, two things there. First and foremost, is it our responsibility to protect people who are on the run? Why is it our responsibility? Did we start the wars in their countries? No. Are we fomenting the wars in their countries? No. Norway, if anything, has been actively engaged in creating peace for many, many decades now. Why is it our responsibility? And secondly, the UN quota system is also intended to destabilize nations. The UN is doing this as much as Russia is. For the United Nations, mass immigration is a weapon used to punish and cajole. The UN uses it to destabilize a country and then provide the solutions to the problem they introduced. Solutions that very rarely, if ever, actually do anything and are never even truly fit for purpose to begin with. As we see an ever larger bureaucracy established to solve the problems that the EU itself created, granting for itself increased powers every step of the way. We must not destabilize our nations for no particular reason. It will not help anyone. It will not help the people on the run. And if we do indeed have a moral duty, which ask me 3 years ago and I would have said yes today, well, even if we do have the moral duty, our first and foremost moral duty is to us. It is to our nations, to our people. The moral duty to protect anyone falls to ourselves first. And only when we have our own house in order, only when we are in a position of strength and security, can we then, with our excess resources, aid others in the way that best benefits everyone. And it's not to further destabilize our own nations in the process. There is no reason to bring a person from Syria to Norway when we could help two in Syria. Especially also considering it destabilizes again both nations. The nation for whom the refugees are fleeing will experience brain drain due to all of the doctors and the engineers fleeing. Whereas the country receiving them will also be destabilized for mysterious reasons. Strange, weird reasons that we haven't gotten quite far enough along to admit. We can admit that the Progress Party is correct, that the current asylum system is not fit for purpose, and that it is destabilizing our nations, but we're gonna need to give it another year or 2 or 3 before we can admit the reason why that seems to happen like clockwork every single place, in every single country where we see mass immigration, to the point where other nations like Russia, like Turkey, and like the EU have begun to weaponize it. So, one step in the right direction. Let's hope we don't immediately take 2 backwards, shall we? Until next time, I have been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.